right, so this is going to be fun. So I'm Jeff Bigham. I'm going to be moderating this amazing panel. So I just want to say quickly, so before you is this amazing set of speakers. I don't know if everyone got to see and hear from everyone, but what I really like about the VizWiz Workshop is how we bring together such an interesting set of folks who are all kind of thinking about using computer vision for accessibility. And so now we get to ask them a bunch of interesting, hard questions at the intersection of their skill set and experience. So we're going to try to do that. Okay, but first, just quick kind of rapid fire. I'm hoping to just go down the panel, and we'll pick on Elisa here. We'll start with you, so the other people have a little bit more time to think.
Nice.
What's like one takeaway that you have from this workshop so far? Perhaps thinking about the people that spoke outside of your expertise or not. What's like one takeaway? Lisa, pick on you.
There are a lot of. Should we have a mic, or is it good?
There are mics, but they're all kind of. Here, you want to? Here, you can
I think I can project, but
you hold that.
it might be. All right.
Hi everyone. I think, first of all, I will probably lie in bed tonight and think of, oh, this was a way better answer than what I gave. But the first thing that for me comes to mind is that I saw a lot of opportunities for us to talk more across disciplines. And I think this workshop is a really great opportunity for facilitating that, and we should have more of those opportunities, be it academia talking to industry, but also being experts in computer vision, in NLP, in HCI, in the social sciences talking to each other. Because I definitely learned a lot about different perspectives, and I don't want to pick out one particular thing, but just the interdisciplinary exchange is something we could really do better on. And yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Awesome. All right, next up. Rapid fire, rapid fire.
Can I plus one to this? Well, one thing for sure is intent. I guess we should go fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Intent. Like just try to understand what our users actually want.
Plus one, cross-disciplinarity.
Super fast.
Really fast. Mine is still going out. I think the thing that is most amazing to me is like seeing all these people here that are interested in this topic. Like, actually like a year ago, like I had no experience or expertise working in this. Didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't know that there were this many other people like interested in working on this problem. And I think like accessibility is still not ideal on the web. Like it's like shopping on the web with accessibility features sounds like insane. So there's still so many problems, and it's amazing to see so many people here interested in the technology maturing that like I'm kind of like hopeful that we'll all sort of figure it out, because I think we've come a long way in even a year, making things that weren't possible. So yeah.
Ryan.
Mine would be excitement. I guess we're at a very exciting time for computer vision and AI. It's going to be very fascinating to see where all of this will be a year from now, because things are happening so rapidly. So excitement, I guess. Yeah.
All right, keep the mic, Brian. I gotta. Or did you want to follow up? Anybody can. So keep the mic, because I want to turn this to. A lot of speakers mentioned this kind of concept of safety, which I think is sort of this, umbrella term. It can mean a lot of different things. But Brian, I remember in your talk in particular, I thought you mentioned two examples, which I think were interesting kind of contrasts. You mentioned like the toothpaste and the hemorrhoid creams, like, oh, that sounds like a safety issue. But then you said, why can't the thing just describe the people in front of me without telling me everyone's beautiful? And so I was wondering if you have thoughts on like, how do we move forward with this? Because I think it's a fundamental challenge generally across the field, and when you think about technologies for people who are blind, I think that there's kind of a different dimension, which different people touched on. So I'll let you maybe start, and then I want to hear from some of the others.
I think, there's no one correct solution for everybody with this. I mean, everybody's different, like I mentioned before. It even goes down to verbosity with screen readers. Some people want more, some, none, all, It's such an individual choice that I think AI is going to be the same thing as the dog gets curious. He's like, don't replace me with a robot dog. But I think you're just going to have to present people with as many options as possible, because, I mean, that's just with consumers as well. Nobody ever seems to want the same thing. Description for somebody, some people, like I said, some want more, some want less, and I think just giving people as many possible options to choose from would probably satisfy the most amount of people, I guess.
Anybody want to follow up from the other speakers?
I can follow up. Go ahead. No. I think like one of the other things we're seeing with RLHF, following on like giving people what they want and need, is you're optimizing for human preferences, and like I think like a lot of the times like if I have like a wall of OCR, I don't want like all text, like just give me the vibe, or like if the model is using a tool, like I don't need you to narrate the whole Google search, just like give me the gist. And that's what I want. And through this process of like alignment, I'm hopeful that like over the coming years, we'll actually be able to like, go beyond like rule-based or like sort of like handcrafted solutions, and like actually instill what people want into the behavior of these systems. How to like toe the line between like safety and policy and giving the masses what they want, though, that's like a separate moral question I don't have answers for. Yeah.
Anyone else have comments? No, it's like the hardest problem right now. You're all.
That's why we don't have comments, dude.
Okay. So I guess another thing actually that Brian mentioned, it was this push toward these plugins, these overlays that try to automatically fix accessibility in web pages. They don't live up to the promise right now. I was wondering, I mean, anyone who has maybe comments on this, but because I think it's a general challenge when the promise or kind of the way we talk about the technology kind of puts it in the most positive light, and maybe it's not there yet. And we have thoughts on like maybe from the industry perspective, or lived perspective, or how do we ramp up responsibly when the technology doesn't quite do everything we want, while still recognizing there's huge potential. It's time to. It's a safe room to pontificate.
It's always hard.
I mean, I think where a lot of these overlay companies got it wrong was nothing about us without us, where they didn't even. I'm thinking of one in particular. They didn't even consult with any blind screen reader users to build their product. So I think that's why they got it wrong. And could these overlays have possibly had been something had they been properly designed and done in the right way? And can computer vision and AI potentially eventually do that? I think so. I think if the parameters are set right, and again, the customization options, I think it comes down, because even like with screen readers and more low vision, I mean, why is a low vision toolbar completely acceptable, but these plugins for screen readers aren't? And I think it's because they were so poorly designed and the results and that sort of thing. But if AI and computer vision is going to give people customization options, I think that could definitely be very promising.
Anybody have thoughts on that?
I'm hesitant speaking up because I feel it's not my area of expertise, similarly to the privacy question, but I'm going to use my turn to hopefully correctly quote someone else. Chancey Fleet was making a wonderful point just a couple of days ago at a different workshop about how these technologies are a wonderful opportunity because they make things accessible that previously weren't, but how this same technology can then reduce the effort brought in by people to make accessible solutions themselves, like writing alt text for your images. And connecting back to the notions of intent, you, the person who took the picture and uploaded it, are the one who knows best what to take away from that image in most of the cases. And so you're going to be the expert for writing that alt text, which an AI can sort of approximate, but can probably never meet, because not even another person could probably really understand why you posted the pictures and what you want someone to take away from it. So sort of trying to keep the focus on parallel efforts as opposed to replacing the human component is, I think, that was something I took away from the other workshop that I thought was very thoughtful.
Donna?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, should we take some questions from the crowd?
Oh,
I do
yeah,
have
let's
a
take a-
question, but I wonder if anyone in the audience wants to ask a question before I do.
Yeah, so I was wondering, in some of the work while I was at Yahoo, we used to do is allow users to have apps and randomly during the day ask, hey, what are you doing? Like, so it was like, and they were given some money. So here, maybe provide apps to this particular group of people with low vision or whatever, and say, okay, what difficulty did you have today? And so that would create a sort of corpus of issues that they feel during the day and how important this pain was. I don't know whether, Brian, people would do this, participate in such a thing. But they did this, I think the paper was from Telefonica or something in Spain. They did the study, and so it was very useful, and we used it to sort of analyze what we should work on. Sort of prioritize, there are gazillion things you can work on, so how do we prioritize? Otherwise we are solving a problem that doesn't exist, kind of a thing. So wonder whether anything like that has been done for this community or not.
Which company, I'm sorry?
So has anybody done a survey sort of providing, so it looks like not, where low vision people have this app where they can say what problem they are having, and it goes into a common corpus such that later on we can analyze it and work on it.
I know with a lot of the apps, assuming you're talking about AI, that there is a lot of beta testing going on. I don't know if they've specifically broken it down to low vision users versus no vision users. I've not been asked. I've been involved with a lot of the betas, but I've not been asked. I don't know if they just know that I'm totally blind and have no usable vision. But they should be testing for low vision. I mean, that's low vision. Unfortunately, gets left out a lot of the time, and that's kind of, it gets taken for granted because I think low vision is so much harder to create for, because what is one person's low vision, what they can see compared to somebody else with low vision, it's so individualistic that I think it is tougher to design for low vision in mind. But I know that there's been a lot going on with color contrast and fonts and stuff like that as well.
I just to add, I mean, there is a huge body of work in accessibility, understanding what challenges that people who are blind using a bunch of different methodologies. So you're trying to describing experience sampling, but there's a whole bunch of methodologies that have been used. I think what's interesting as the technology has matured, first with sort of crowdsourcing, and then now with machine learning, AI, you can actually get the technology out into people's hands so that it's not sort of this artificial, hey, what problem do you have like right now? But like you can start to kind of get them to say, here's the problem I'm having, and I'm trying to use this app to solve it. But certainly, good instincts of let's make sure it's real problems we're solving, and relying on the literature too, because I think there are experts out there. I mean, both. Yeah.
I actually have a question on this. Like, where can we find this? Because actually, that's sort of like what I was alluding to at the end of my talk. Like, I felt like we really needed this, like, while developing our apps at OpenAI, and like, we just sort of had to like run into all the problems ourselves. If this exists, then maybe this is actually, you know, a problem of like not having the right cross-disciplinary like pollination, because like I think we all alluded to that. Like, you know, this is a super like interdisciplinary workshop compared to the other ones we've been to. So I guess we're supposed to be answering questions, but like I do wonder like how we can do this, because like I would like it honestly. Like, and it would make my life a lot easier. I mean, I think make a lot of our lives a lot easier on both sides of the spectrum.
We have a question from the chat. So Darun asks, how generalizable are these models? And I kind of want to like build off of that and be like, does your definition of generalizability change kind of after today? Like, what does it mean to be generalizable in the context of people with like varied abilities?
I can start. I think that's a great question. I want to put in my slogan here, which is, I talked about context a lot, and context is context specific. And that includes the needs of the users and who's approaching the system, and coming back also to Brian's point of always having to say again, oh, I'm a blind user, I might have these preferences, etc. So there's definitely a call and demand, and I think also a theoretical motivation to build systems that have personalized components that go with my expertise. When I'm a hairdresser, I need hair explained in a very different way than when a system explains hairstyles to me, who has no clue about hairstyles. And similarly, my age will affect it, my demographic affected my cultural background. And all of those things are underexplored, but they clearly demand for personalized solutions. And how we can facilitate those, again, coming also back to Brian talking about identifying my mother, my dog, etc. All of that is the personalized perspective, like generalized capabilities in general for visual extraction, language capacity, but we still need personalized adaptation to serve user needs in communicative situations.
Next, oh, go ahead.
I have similar thoughts. I guess, you know, there will be components that are generalizable. You know, syntax understanding, for example, this kind of like a common occurrence, right? You want these kind of capabilities embedded, probably. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But you know, things like as I go through VizWiz, for example, things that I didn't realize, like color recognition or spatial understanding, right? There will be components that are generalizable, but I do agree with the sentiment that in the end, you know, personalization.
I think it's actually even more like extreme than personalization. Like, you know, take a step back. Like at the meta level, like what matters is like that you're able to understand a piece of information and do what you ideally want to do with that information. Everything else is like an interface to help you get to that point and go on after that point. So like there's per user personalization, but like with multimodality and like, you know, just all the different, like say like images on a web page or style of a web page, whatever, there's a plethora of ways to like organize any particular piece of information. So you actually need not just like personalization to a user level, because some people understand things better through certain media. You also actually need like personalization based on the data itself. Like you need, I mean, this is why, you know, we agonize so much over like formatting our papers, right? Or like creating like you know, educational material for kids, right? Like just presenting those bits, organizing those photons in those particular ways, like just for some people like helps you clock it. Like, you know, there'll be like times when you're trying to understand a concept for like days and hours, and then someone just shits the explanation and it just makes sense to you. And you know, with our current tech, like, and the way we design like interfaces, it's like, you know, one website for everyone, for every web page on that website. But I think as we like now have these tools with multimodal systems and like systems that can not only see but write code, we hopefully will get to the point where like the user, the design and the interface, the GUI that you see is like changing on like the data point basis. But, yeah. Yeah.
Talking from a testing background, I think it's so great. So many companies now I know are specifically testing customers with disabilities, which is great. The issue is, because of the closed nature of it, that none of the companies are sharing the data that they're collecting because of proprietary stuff and lots of other things. So it's really a company by company basis to what they're learning and what we're doing, you know, besides what people share at conferences like this. And you know, I don't know if there's ever a way, you know, we know how companies are, if they're gonna open it to everybody, but, and also the thing with when testing for people with disabilities is you've got to really try and test for the average user. You know, somebody like me who's an expert with most of these things is going to experience it a lot different than using these products and sort of things. I remember recently I went to I can't remember the website, nor should I probably say it, and it was inaccessible, and I'm like, huh, I've never seen that before. And I'm like,
Is it based in Seattle?
Yeah. But I'm supposed to be the funny one. But no, it's so still companies are introducing new web accessibility barriers on an almost a daily basis. And I don't know, well, hopefully we'll be able to get past this, you know, in the next several years.
I have a question. I've been curious about this for a long time. How to increase disability representation in these multimodal models that are coming up? So I'm basing this out of a research that was conducted by one of my fellow PhD students at UW, where they basically just looked at disability representation, and it was mostly like people with wheelchairs, and they were disregarding other types of disabilities. And similarly, like if you give a prompt in a text-to-image generation model that show me a face of a disabled person, it usually comes up with like gloomy face or sad faces. And I think partly this is because of the training data. I think there's lack of misrepresentation or like misrepresentation there. But again, because of the privacy and safety concerns, these type of data sets are not freely available. And it's very, again, expensive to just use the real users to get this data. So what are your thoughts how to actually increase the representation of different disabilities, but also disabilities with multiple identities, like a disabled person with race associated with it?
I know, if I'm understanding correctly, you know, and that's something where the inclusive design comes in, and it's going to be very company by company specific, but considering, you know, people of all different backgrounds, especially marginalized communities, and it's just trying to gather as many, I guess, data sets that you can test for. And I know that's something that we try and do, and that a lot of other companies are trying to do to expand upon, you know, just bringing in, for sake of example, 5 white, 40-ish males. You know, you want to kind of get somebody from all different backgrounds, because they're obviously going to experience what they're told, whether it's from computer vision or AI, much differently than I would do it. So I think it's just trying to get as wide of array of testers as possible is the best possible practice.
Because we haven't mentioned the term yet, human-computer interaction is a great search term to look for research that has thought about this for quite a long time and has been studying these questions in a lot of detail, thinking about the complex interactions between identity and disability as well. So I think that will be a useful resource for a lot of people to look into.
Can I have a very practical answer here? Sorry, do either of you two want to answer first? I feel like I would answer a lot. So, a very practical answer is, from a research and capability standpoint, like, you always have to trade off one capability for another thing. So, for people to include, accessibility data in their models, like, the numbers still have to go, right? Everything has to go. That's like a very boring thing. Like, it's pretty easy to make that happen. The more practical answer is, like, people usually want to do the thing, but people don't know how. People don't even know where to get the data. I don't even know where to get the data. Like, I did some things for it. And everyone is just busy. Everyone is just tired. I mean, like, OpenAI, like, it's still a startup technically. I mean, like, our research staff is, like, pretty small. And, like, we want to do the most, but it's just hard. And, everyone has their own other things that they want to focus on, their own goals, own dreams, desires, wishes, whatever. So a very practical perspective from, like, working in a big organization and, like, getting people to change what they're doing to work on your thing. You have to make it easy for them. Like, you have to honestly do, like, 90% of the work and take on the other people's burdens, right? Listen to them. What are they dealing with? How can you make their life easier so they have time to do your shit? And, like, I think that's it, like, going to all the different companies, all the different parties, taking on, like, whatever, hearing all their concerns about why they can or can't, navigating the politics. It's a very, very boring practical answer, and that stuff takes so much longer than you think. Like, I mean, look at our government. But, like, you just need to be a champion and sort of believe in it and make that your thing and just be willing to put in the work over, like, a long period of time and find the right, doors to knock on and stuff like that. And that is hard, but the doors probably exist somewhere. Yeah.
Can I use a moderator's prerogative a little bit? I also jump in. I have a simpler answer. Make it non-negotiable, right? You can't do that necessarily in every position, but some companies do. And so, for instance, Apple will not ship something that doesn't work for people with disabilities. It just doesn't happen. And not every company is at that point yet, and that's the hard work, and that's the hard work that we're all talking about. But I think that's the actual answer. Make it a value that the company sees as non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
It doesn't have to be easy. It can be hard. Well, easier is easier, but you got to be non-negotiable even when it's hard. And I'm not saying this for any particular, I've worked at lots of companies, right? So it's hard to change the culture, what the company values, but ultimately that's what works.
And I think, like, maybe the way I see it is, maybe I think y'all are, like, Jeff, you and Raul are talking about two different things, I guess, in terms of, and your question is also about another thing, I guess, in terms of, like, I think, for Apple not shipping anything that, like, doesn't do right by people with disabilities, that's, like, talking about a core output of the model, whereas if we're talking about what kind of training data that goes in, that's kind of an intermediate component, right? Of course, maybe it manifests in possibly biased outputs, maybe that's due to other problems in the model, maybe it's due, like, you know what I mean? And so there's kind of a lot of levers you can pull here, some of which are politically more easily you're able to pull than others. I think that's maybe summarizing Raul's point. So yeah, I think all these things are important, and, like, the concrete thing, like, if you're in academia, it's like making evaluations that really measure exactly what kind of output you want to see in, say, text-to-image models, and then we can track those and be like, okay, it has to be above 70% or whatever on this evaluation in order to ship a model.
Yeah.
Follow-up question for collecting data that's aligned with the blind and low vision users. Because for this part, like I mean, you want to build a model, we need to have good data. And good data to align with the blind and low vision users, we need probably a large amount of human annotators. Even to train a model, we probably need tens of K or 100K of data to do that. How to overcome this amount of data? Like in order to train the model or either fine-tune or RLHF or some other way, we need a large amount of data. That's like even to recruit blind and low vision user, they're quite different from the what visual people see, and the need for ratings might be different. So how to overcome to have enough human annotators to label the data, or to, especially for alignment with blind and low vision users? Are there any possible directions or ways of that?
Not to be sassy first, but that is a very like CVPR take for like climbing the SOTA, trying to like push SOTA numbers on ImageNet farther. You know, you need like gajillions of data points. You know, when you start actually like working with these larger language models, and I'm hoping like the entire community gets to start working with them soon. The sample complexity, the amount of data points you need to like do well on a problem, drops dramatically when you fine tune it. We've seen this with like BERT making like new tasks solvable finally for the first time. But with these models, like, and RLHF and supervised fine tuning, like, honestly, most of the time, like, you can get 60% of the way with like 100 data points. And if you realize that all of this data is exponential, like, or has like, you need exponential amounts of data to provide more value, like, you know, sure, 20,000 versus 30,000 data points is gonna do nothing for the model, but it's gonna be really exhausting for you to gather. However, 100 to 200 data points is gonna provide a lot of value to the model. So, you know, there's two problems. It's like, okay, you gotta scale up your data collection, but you need to figure out what to scale first in the first place, you know. And for that, honestly, you can do it with like 100 data points. Like the age-old like sort of adage of like, oh, go gather your lab mates and have a pizza party and label some data over the weekend actually kind of works again. Like, and we have done that for so many of like, you know, the safety modifications that we did were that, you know, like, okay, someone gave us this feedback, let's just sit down with an Excel spreadsheet for like all of Thursday or something like that. And then you get to the, you know, 1,000 data point mark, and you're like, okay, this is really working well. Like, let's go get like all the data annotators. We've figured out like the problems with data annotation, and then you go and gather those. But you can get so far with like just like 100, 200 data points in that in the crafting these days.
But I think you're also getting at a really interesting question, which is, what are the interesting data points and how can we best leverage recruiting from a low incidence population? And I think this is an area of research that we need more work on, which is explicitly comparing where we get the most informative and important data points from the blind and low vision participant community. And this means understanding in detail how the experience between a blind and low vision user differs from the experience from a sighted user. That also means understanding the nuances in the blind and low vision community in experience. Like, for instance, there's well-documented differences in experience when you have been blind since birth versus acquired blindness later on, which is in addition to like the distinction between blind and low vision. So we're actually seeing that in studies right now that we're doing in my lab on the accessibility of data visualizations, where color information become differently relevant, etc. And so specifically those pieces of information need to be oversampled then when you are in a sort of data restricted scenario. So I think this is actually a very exciting domain for further research.
Actually, there's a survey paper for people coming from different fields that would be very nice, because it can help us. I think some people already know it, other people who are from other areas are not aware of the literature. So.
And I think like kind of echoing these points, I think it's like I feel like this is like this is a call to action to make a different type of data set than what has often been made in the past. right? Where we put a lot of thought and care into relatively fewer examples, rather than kind of like go for quantity rather than quality, I guess, which feels like kind of weird that like I'm up here talking about this, given that like, you know, LLMs are trained on so much data, but like there's kind of two regimes and they're very different from one another in terms of how you want to teach your model to behave at the end of the day, and then how do you train the best base model. And because these are different regimes, we can use very different tools. And it's just like, maybe that's how we can start studying these questions on, say, personalization, right? Making it such that the answer is not just conditioned on like a short question, but a history of a user interaction in long context. Like so many possibilities when we look closer at each data point that I wasn't able to do during my PhD because the technology wasn't there yet.
Sounds like VizWiz 25 is going to be fun.
So maybe one last, we're supposed to be, probably like 40 minutes ago we're supposed to be done, right?
Yeah, about 30 minutes, yes.
Yeah. So Nisa, you had your hand up. I'm going to pick on Nisa way back in the back. Did you want to ask a question?
Sure. It's a long question. So I was wondering, I think connects to the customization, personalization context. A lot of those, the source is the actual user. And so the promise of AI was that it's going to take this burden from, and then airport in here, from the society to have to do things accessible, and AI will take over it. And I'm wondering whether are we pushing this burden on the hand of the blind community, right? They will have to provide the comments, they will have to do customization, they will have to do personalization. Is it just a shift of the burden, or are we actually really hoping that AI will actually take over that part too, and will automatically, magically understand the context that the user needs, understand the specific customization or personalization? Just, I was wondering, right, your thoughts on that. But I understand the concept of information.
Very quickly, difference between opportunity to customize, like really as I want it to be mine, like that can be something that is empowering, but of course we don't want overburden, so that's an interesting trade-off. But I think it can also be empowering to be able to customize. So that's the flip side.
Brian, did you want to say anything?
Sure. I think if I understood the question correctly, not everybody in the blindness community is as excited for this AI as I am and other tech enthusiasts are, I think. There's probably a good portion. There's no burden. I mean, it does get a little silly, but I guess you get it. Every single time you use AI, it's, how was this? What did this do? It's giving feedback. And I mean, I am burnt out on feedback just from all the crap I order on Amazon. How is the driver delivery? How is this? But so I get it. I mean, everything nowadays, it seems like everybody is gathering feedback and about every little thing. How is every freaking doctor's visit, you get a text and everything. So I don't think it's a burden. I think it's just the way we've gone with data collection being so key to the development of this. And the people that are enthusiastic about it, I think they won't look at it as a burden at all, helping collect the data.
It's actually, what you were saying there, like, triggered a memory from like an old a web search class I took with Chris Manning years ago. And like, one of the things he told me about like the history of like search is like some of actually the earliest search engines before Google had you actually input user preferences and say this worked well, this didn't work well. And people kind of didn't like it. It was annoying. Like, you had to put in so much work, it got exhausting after a while. And Google was able to sort of like crack the problem by, one, leveraging unstructured instead of structured search, but two, figuring out ways to like approximate human feedback without actually asking or burdening the user. And I do wonder maybe like if we can figure out some way as a community to do that for all of these accessibility things, will that solve the problem?
Personalized page rank, right?
right? First
Yeah,
one.
so I worked on ClickBase, various ranking. I'm from Yahoo and Microsoft Bing. So there are two ways of doing. One is you take web search logs with clicks, etc., and that nobody knows. And you same thing with ads, and you create a model. So that's the feedback model. There's one issue with that though, which is it's a looking back model where because it already that product needs to be online. If the product is not online, obviously you cannot get a log or click. That's where what I was asking earlier, where you ask a question what you are doing, then those are the question answers where what should you be building?
So feedback solves the old problem. Feedback
That's right.
solves-
So if you already have something, then you collect logs, and then it's not a burden on the user. And so the only thing is here, all the apps that Brian is using, that data is behind a walled garden, right? You don't have access to it. So you'll have to create a new app and probably leave it on.
I wonder if something like reward models would work, like for language, like we have reward models that like sort of just assess, the quality of the response. They don't ask for human intervention. I wonder if something that like could judge like how sort of like.
Yeah, we take time. How long did they respond? Did they need it? So, for example, in Bing, we would look after typing a query. Did this type in Google? So that the answer was so terrible, they just want to eject and go to Google. Right? So we call it switching queries, right? So they want to switch the search engine. So
I love that because I was gonna say like I think like the challenge with a lot of these feedback, right, or like, these things of feedback is like they're often feedback within the context of the current paradigm, and that can be really tricky when maybe the solution is some different paradigm.
you got it. Yeah. Yes. I got it.
Yeah, just a quick thought. So, like, I'm not speaking from the position of expert here, but I was thinking if I know exactly what I want, if I know what the problem is, I want to help, right? So I was wondering whether we can think about how by like people with disability could imitate, like say you want to collect data, imitate the scenarios that you don't have disability, but you have to go through this, and then kind of collect data that way, right? So you don't have to shift the burdens to all the people with disability.
So sighted
Yeah.
people,
Right,
sighted
right.
people mimic.
Right, and I'm sure, like I saw in the Elisa's talk that she has an experiment like that. I remember like Davy's birds, or maybe your paper that's kind of like kind of blur the images, right, and things like that. But I guess we have to know, right, kind of what exactly we need to do there, and maybe this is related to your like scaling up the data question as well.
So just to warn anybody in this room, this particular approach is fraught with peril. Not that you can't use it in targeted ways, but you have to really know what you're doing. So this whole idea of like blindfolded participants is kind of like it's almost like the third rail of accessibility research for good reasons, like have been mentioned around nothing about us without us and making sure you're actually involving people with disabilities. Sometimes, carefully, just so you all know that. So okay, so I know we're way past time. Lots of great discussion. I'm going to try an actual rapid fire. Okay, so as you're packing whatever, panelists. All right, so imagine it's 2025. We're at VizWiz Workshop 7. I don't know. Would it be 7? What's the biggest thing that you think will change in a year? Because I think we did this last year and we were all pretty much wrong. So you can be wrong. It's recorded, but probably nobody will go back. Probably only the next GPT, whatever, will review that information. So, all right, I'm just rambling a little bit to give you a little bit of time to kind of get your thoughts together.
I got you.
One sentence.
Video privacy personalization.
Video privacy personalization. Cool.
Do you want to go first? The question is, what will happen in 2025 at the VizWiz Workshop?
You were a panelist.
you're a panelist in a research workshop. I've kind of set the 1 year, but
Your prerogative is to say whatever you want, really, because that's what panelists do. So, but 1 year from now.
Structure image generation. I just make that up.
Structure image generation, awesome.
I
User
think like
interfaces.
benchmarks.
I think human-computer interaction. I think using computers and navigating the web will become significantly easier for the blind and low vision community over the next year.
I thought you were gonna mention the Humane AI pin and what a disaster that's been. Hey, maybe it'll be accessible a year from now. Computer vision, I guess hopefully a year from now, I won't need a real live person to navigate me the heck out of this building. I'll be able to fire it up on my glasses and have them tell me where I'm going as the Oscar speech ends.
awesome. Okay, so thank you so much. My prediction, by the way, 2025, we're going to solve conference AV systems.
That's never going to happen, I'm sorry.
Do we want to, Donna, do you want to say bye? Okay.
Enjoy lunch, thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.